So good everybody, and welcome to our monthly OSF regional abatement meeting and whatever else we might want to bring to the table. This month, we are finally having a conversation about the regional abatement reporting. So I'm very happy to see folks on. Just for purposes, hi, Connie Burke, Associate Commissioner with Grants Management and Special Projects. I'm joined by folks from the project management team, Lucia Perfetti-Clark and Kristen Lynch, as well as our research and evaluation team. I see Catherine Lozer on, and I know that there are others because we're frequently joined by folks from other parts of the agency. So just want to welcome everybody. Always grateful for some time with especially LGUs, given our collaboration and this long haul that we're in, that is opioid settlement funding. So since we started this a few years ago, I had said, and there was an understanding that our regional abatement reporting would evolve and change. Certainly at the beginning, we didn't know what we didn't know. And we were just getting started, right? There was planning and collaborating and consulting and so on that at the local level to make decisions on how you were going to use the money, let alone get it out the door and spend it. So we're a few years in at this point, and as I had said, in thinking through changes to abatement reporting, this would be done in consult with this group, that would be a discussion, a collaboration.
I'll see if this person is available.
And as folks continue to join, that we would want to discuss it, right? And two, I'm very well aware that we're not going to make a change to the reporting and then say, oh, and it applies to last year, right? We're having a discussion now to inform how we will talk about and report out on this money at the soonest in our 2027 report, right? The report that we'll look to collect next year. So before we get further into that, I want to say thank you to those who reached out to say, where's the link for the regional abatement reporting for this year? So thank you for, I feel like we're well into this process and a shared understanding of kind of the tempo here with the reporting. So I appreciate folks who are like, hey, it's time, where is it? So we are that out to you within the next week or two. As a reminder, it is the same format as we have followed in previous years. I also want to remind folks, and I think we talked about this last time, we are still sending out a report link for the direct share reporting. And so, wanting to make sure that we're discerning between the two, regional abatement and direct share. I know in some instances the LGUs are reporting out on the direct share as well, but not always. So know that if you have provided us information to say that you are responsible for the direct share, we have up our email so that the link will go to you. If not, we have an entity that's been identified by the Attorney General's office, and that is who the report will go to. So, having said that, one more thing that I want to mention, OASAS is putting together our 2025 OSF report. And in the report, we are including information on both regional abatement and direct share. Know that the report is constructed and responsive to the requirements as outlined in statute and in the sharing agreement itself. So much of this information is already available on the webpage, but not all of it. So there will be some additional information shared here in the report, particularly around dollars spent. So I wanted to give you guys a heads up on that and make you aware of that. And also, we'll give you a heads up when that report is closer to being released. In working on that, and then also, in thinking about the work that NYU is doing with the entities that are receiving regional abatement, just sharing some numbers with you. Know that the 25 report that I'm talking about reflects our work through fiscal year 25, which is March 2025. Fiscal year 25 ended March 2025. And given the reporting from the LGUs, large cities, and the OLEs, these are the numbers to share. So based on through fiscal year 2025, we show that among the 5 large cities, there was about 15.3 million made available, and reporting shows an expenditure, 14%, about 14% of those dollars were spent through 2024. For the counties, we have 119.5 million made available, and we see spending through calendar year 24 at 24%. Thinking about the fact that these guys started receiving money in 23, right? That, by the end of 24, quarter of it out, I think is impressive. I understand and know all too well state finance law, procurement, let alone planning, decision-making, collaboration, right? To actually get those dollars spent is a huge effort, So I think that 24% is a reasonable number, a good number. And then for towns and cities, there was 2.6 million made available, and they reported 50% spent. So I share these numbers because these are the numbers folks are going to be able to calculate and figure out, right, based on the information we're all making available. I think these are good numbers. I know what it takes to get all of this out. I think we all need, we already know, right? People will be asking questions. They'll be saying, but what about this? What about that? And why not more? And we all are in this boat together. We're all getting these questions, right? So just for, you guys, you've heard us talk about it, right? The process, the planning, the collaboration amongst the state agencies around these dollars. The procurement process alone is just so time consuming. And I think that, too, one of the things that we employed, and I think that, some of you have as well, is the notion of multi-year contracting, right? And that it takes time to spend money. The reality is if we had dumped $450 million, and I shouldn't say dumped, I shouldn't be so crass about it, but if we had funneled $450 million into our system, our providers and our system would not have been able to spend that money in a 12-month period. I mean, it's impossible. It's impossible. And so these are the things that we all know because we're dealing with this every day that I think sometimes the general public doesn't think of or isn't aware of or doesn't understand necessarily our operations. When you think about having to hire staff in order to have them deliver services to be able to spend that money, I mean, that alone, right, is always a challenge. Workforce is a continuing challenge. But I want to just put it out there. I'm interested if anybody has any thoughts or comments on that before we talk about the reporting.
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you so much. It's good to see you today. My camera's not working, so sorry about that. You said that we have to report the direct share, right? You're referring to the AG dollars, right?
So whoever the designated entity is, as identified by the AG's office, is who the link will go to and the reporting that we're going to request. I'm not sure if I can anticipate that where you're going, because now
You can.
with the statute from last year, right? All entities to provide information publicly available. And so know that we did send a request out in the fall because entities had to respond to that requirement by November 1st. We did send a link out requesting entities to tell us how they've made information publicly available. So all direct share folks got that. And I'm not going to remember the percentage off the top of my head. Maybe Kristen or Lucia will remember. I want to say around 30 or 40% responded to us. Now, that's 30 or 40% who responded. And know that of those who responded, some reported zero spending. So we did ask for that information, and some had a link to share. I think for the most part, folks had a link to their county or entity website where they were making information publicly available. So because of the varied responses and how direct share entities were responding to that requirement, we made the decision to continue with our request for direct share reporting so that we would get some additional information, or at least consistent, ask like the same question across all entities around the use of those direct share dollars. Actually, we do already have it on the webpage, I think, Lucia and Kristen. So if you go to the OSF direct share portion of our webpage, you'll see which entities had provided us with a link to their way of sharing that direct share information. You can see, responses we had or non-responses. And so, and actually too, Dr. Aycock, I anticipated we weren't going to request direct share reporting from folks anymore once that statute was put in place. And then given the implementation and the varied response, we made the decision, no, we would continue to ask for the direct share information. So, and even with that, I think that, there's a good chance that it may evolve and change as well, right? As we learn and as we see what's happening out there. So I don't know if I anticipate the question or not.
You read my mind. You read my mind. Okay. So thank you. That was kind of scary, a little bit scary how you was able to read my mind.
Well, and it's reasonable, right? I don't want to ask folks to do more reporting than is necessary or, just to be redundant, right? And creating work. We're not trying to create work for folks. I think that the challenge for all of us is getting clarity around what and how to report. And there's so many entities involved and we each have our lens, and trying to establish consistency across, all these entities use their discretion in how they report this and what this looks like, is really challenging. So we are going to maintain both. And thank you, Lucia. She popped in the chat the link to the direct share information. Any other? Oh, I see a hand up, Janet.
Just want to weigh in a little bit. We've been watching, participating in this for years and watching the OASAS, Opioid Settlement Funds Advisory Board. And I feel like the focus is so much getting money out the door. And I think that's a really remiss thing to just monitor. When we look at things in our county, and I'm sure everybody else does, we look at the idea of sustainability and transforming the system of care. And that's not to be taken lightly. I mean, we could get the money out the door all in year one, and then what? Then you have 1 year of transformation, and it's not transformation, it's services. And then you've hired people that you have to lay off. It's not a transformation of the system of care. And it's a little frustrating. I could speak for me personally. I don't know if I'm speaking for my county, I'm speaking for me. It's very frustrating to watch all of that. And to hear that. And honestly, I don't hear anybody pushing back saying that that's what the counties are focusing on. Because that is what we're focusing on. We don't want to just, take this money and throw it out the window. We want to transform our system of care and make sure it's sustainable. So that's just my 2 cents in there because yeah, I think I'm frustrated.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate what you're saying. And so this is where you all need to come to an opioid settlement fund advisory board meeting. And during the public comment, you need to take the podium and you need to talk about your approach to using these dollars and what you are trying to accomplish. And heck, focus on a particular project or something, focus on an area, because public comment is 2 or 3 minutes, so it's not a lot of time. But this is so important that you brought this up, right? Because it's on all of us to communicate to the state what we're doing, how we're doing it, and the challenges that we are facing and overcoming in making use of these dollars. And so really, I think that, to get out in front on this and to talk about it is so critically important. Like, oh my gosh, folks, we have you can come to the Albany location. We have other New York City location, and then we also have a location in the western part of the state for the Opioid Settlement Fund advisory meetings. And now that this has come up, I'm going to be like, come on, you guys, come to the meeting. So the next meeting, by the way, is May 13th. Someone dropped in the chat, is there a schedule? The link to the Opioid Settlement Fund Advisory Board information is in the chat. We do have our anticipated dates for this year. So May 13th, September 10th, and the 21st of October. Not that those dates are like on a whiteboard for me to refer to. And so you absolutely should come and talk about the work that you're doing. And know that there may be additional dates added. One of the requests by the board was to add additional meetings. So please submit testimony, submit comment. Okay, I'm going to stop. I know there was another hand up, including Debbie Davis, who just joined us. There was one other person who, not Debbie, sorry, who had their hand up.
Anna,
I did have my hand up, but it was by accident.
I think it was Anna Platt.
I was trying to clap for Janet's comment, but I raised my hand.
Oh, thanks. Okay, thanks. Right. So you guys, seriously, like, come to a board meeting. Let's all have lunch during the break together. Like, I would love for us for us to show up and really represent and talk about. And you guys know, you guys are going to get tons of questions. There's been more focus on what's happening at the local level, what are counties doing with the money. So get out there and talk about it. I encourage you. I cheer you on. I will buy you lunch. Anyone who comes to Albany, I will buy you lunch that day. And I'm not even kidding. I'm serious. If not that, I'll make you cookies, whatever you want. It would be great to have you there. So any other comments or questions about the numbers I shared? I think we all have a shared struggle in talking about the use of these dollars. And so what a nice pivot to the regional abatement reporting. And so I did ask Council's office. So Greg Meyer was kind enough to pull together the requirements, because this is one of the I don't know if it's attention or not, but what are we required to do? What does the statute and the settlement agreement say we have to report out on? And this is true for OASAS as well as for all of you, right? What do we have to report out on? What is the information we have to share on a regular basis? Versus we may have other ways that each of us are looking at the use of these dollars that we're sharing through our web pages or in just how we're talking about it. So in terms of those musts, Greg had shared with me the language around making sure that we're following allowable uses, that we're accounting for our expenditures, and then the analysis or evaluation of funded programs. And you all are very familiar. We all work in government. where language is like a little obtuse. And so when it says evaluation of funded programs, what does that mean, right? I mean, I think if you ask Lucia and you ask me, we might say two slightly different things, right? So I think it depends on who you ask. And so that is a particular area that I wanted to talk about today. And then there's additional language around non-remediation expenditures and, again, tracking expenditures. I think we all know audits are going to be part of our existence around these OSF dollars. So with regard to the evaluation of the use of the dollars of the program, so analysis and evaluation of the programs and services funded by such monies is the exact language. My question to this group is, what does that mean to you? And how are you approaching that requirement with regard to the regional abatement dollars? And before, in case people are feeling a little tentative about responding to that, I expect that there's a range of answers folks could give. You have an evaluation plan, you're collecting data, and you have your analytics rolling, right? Nothing. You're still holding on to the money, you're still planning, you're still thinking about what you're doing. We use some of it for harm reduction supplies. So of course we have an accounting of that amount of money and what supplies were purchased and so on, right? So there could be a broad range of responses to how you are addressing this. From my perspective, there's no right or wrong answer. You are free to exercise your discretion in interpreting that language and what you want to say about the use of these dollars. So just know, like, this is a super safe space, everybody, because we're all dealing with these same things and trying to figure it out. And again, each of us could be figuring it out in a slightly different way or addressing it a slightly different way. That is okay, perfectly okay. My want is for us to come to some shared understanding and thought about with regard to this regional abatement reporting, what we will say, like what can all of us say together about these dollars. So having gone on for too long, Melissa, I see your hand is up, and I think, Suzanne, you had your hand up. So Melissa, you start. Oh, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So basically what we do in Sullivan County is we actually treat it like state pass-through dollars. We go and we do audits out to the programs. We have them submit regular reports, some quarterly, some monthly, depending on the services that they're providing, so that we know that they're actually using the dollars as it was intended to be used. And again, that's because we RFP'd a lot of those dollars out. So I don't know how others are doing that per se. So that's working for us.
Great. Suzanne?
Yep. So I would say very much the same. Whenever we receive a proposal, applicants required to include outcome measures that will help us evaluate the services. And certainly we add additional measures that we feel appropriate to the service. So we are asking that right up front. We may ask that data come in quarterly or, at a 6-month mark. So yeah, much of what you've said, Connie, is what we've included in our process in Franklin.
All right, great. Let's see, Tammy, you have your hand up.
Hi there, everybody. Good morning. I'm going to just say ditto to Melissa and Suzanne. One of the things we did differently this year, though, in general, with all of our contractual providers, is we have them all on a regular meeting schedule, and depending on how much funding they are receiving through us, from us, dictates how often they meet with us. So I'm thinking for settlement funds, our largest bucket that we've funded so far is in the prevention. So that puts that particular agency at a more often meeting schedule. In addition to, regular metrics that we're collecting with them and monitoring of it, like the others said.
Great, terrific. So, so when we're talking about, these regular metrics, or we're also talking about like project-specific metrics, right?
Yes, for us, correct. Like we have a
Right.
meeting coming up this week with it's that particular agency to go over just very concretely how they're distributing some of the funds that they have to project. It's a long story, but we're not trying to micromanage it, but we're trying to be very diligent, and they certainly understand why. We need to be very clear on how we're monitoring and tracking, and they need to be able to speak to it as much as we do, right? Because if they're audited, it may end up on their desk as well as ours, not just because we're the funder or coming through us.
Mhm. So are you distinguishing, and this, for everyone, I don't mean to put you on the spot, Tammy, so are you distinguishing between, and what we talk about here at OASAS, when we manage projects, there is a wealth of information and documentation. We do a lot of tracking, right? So we have those monthly meetings with providers. We are looking at the data that they're submitting, and looking at the data in terms of like counts, right? And to understand like how much service is being delivered. We're looking at staffing. So there's the project management documentation. There's the process numbers, their type of outcome, right? And then like long-term outcomes, right? What is the long-term measure to assess the effectiveness of these dollars? So as you guys are looking at this, are you thinking about, do you have like numbers and tracking in each of those different ways, or are you focusing on, process right now and, outcome later? What's happening there?
No, it's a very good question, and I know Leah is on too, and she'll probably chuckle, excuse me, because we actually have been in the process of really revamping this very in depth, and we've had a statistical tracking method for a long time that none of us have been happy with. So one of our goals has been to revamp that. And because we now have some staff that can help with that, like a data surveillance coordinator, that we can do consistent monitoring, consistent meeting and reviewing, not just on what you were talking about, Connie, but long-term. I think the challenge for us in the prevention bucket, because it is how do you measure prevention always, right? So that's why it's requiring some additional, focused meetings with the provider. We have very clear metrics set up that are separate from our regular tracking system. So anybody that's receiving settlement funds has a separate spreadsheet, has a separate whatever. There's the concrete of what we give them, and then there's the process, right? We're definitely worried about, how many are you serving, how are you serving, satisfaction, and in the prevention world, how do we measure improvement, right? What does that look like? Does that answer your question, I hope?
Yeah. And I think that there's an amount of this that may be iterative too, right? Because you guys continue to roll out initiatives. It's not like everything started, it's going on, right? So there's this whole project life cycle, right? And you're at different phases depending on, the dollars and what your plan looked like.
Yeah, and I'll give you one other quick example because I'm thinking of, I think it's the most recent thing that we funded. And just to be clear, we just posted another RFP, right? So I have to be careful, I guess, what I talk about. But one of the things that we funded last time was a co-located project with EMS and a peer. Okay, that took quite a long time to get off the ground and running. So there's, of course, the process and all that goes with that, but that's an easier example of how we can also track numbers because we're actually looking at how many people were contacted, how many people were referred to treatment, how many people stayed in treatment, that kind of thing. And specifically for people that have had non-fatal overdoses.
So given, do others want to comment or share what they're doing or what the information is that they're tracking? I know Kathy shared in the chat that there are recurring outs at the addiction subcommittee. Kathy, I'm not sure which addiction subcommittee you're referring to. I don't know if you mind coming off mute and talking about that.
It's our subcommittee that is convened through the LGU, meets quarterly.
Okay, so that's within the county itself.
Correct.
The county subcommittee and will meet and report out there. Other folks? Ariella has her hand.
Hi there, everybody. Some of the data that we collect on our prevention services might seem like too in the weeds sometimes to people, but like, are they veterans? Are we getting, who is the homeless population? Do we have kids in foster care that these individuals have? Not only to help us guide how we're spending these funds and making sure we're hitting these areas, but also to guide inform other departments within the county, so that we're working together.
Yeah, I think that's great, and that's definitely something that we are looking at. It's included in our OSF evaluation in terms of who are the individuals we're serving, and being able to describe who they are. And two, the idea behind using these dollars is to reach, I think, high need folks and those most affected. So we are very much wanting to track and understand who are the population that we're serving. Are we getting to the individuals that that we're intending to reach? So I think that that's great. Are other folks feeling shy? They don't like the meetings are being recorded. They don't want to be held to what they say. They don't have mechanisms in place and they don't want to say that. Other comments, other thoughts from folks? Amy, you have your hand up.
Hi. So I'm in Erie County, and all of our providers at the beginning of the OSF funding said that their greatest need was around workforce recruitment and retention. So we put aside some dollars, and these are the dollars that are coming directly through the county or through the Department of Mental Health for recruitment and retention.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of questions about how are you tracking that? Is it making a difference? Those are great questions. We are tracking who's getting the bonuses, what types of roles, how much on average, what is the turnover rate for each of the positions, narrative about how there's an impact or not. So trying to get at that question from all sorts of different ways to satisfy all the people who are interested. I do not know if these funds are making a difference or if they would long term, but keeping people in seats so they can provide the service was very important. So I don't have any answers. If anyone has any suggestions, call me.
So you guys, while we're having this conversation, I'm also thinking about what OASAS has done and the items that OASAS is tracking and measuring. And so like what just struck me in with what you just said, Amy, and I saw your confusion when you're not waving to me, Amy. I know you're trying to get your hand down. But in terms of like our effort around workforce, right? So we do have a lot of effort going into our workforce initiatives, and is there any opportunity for us where we are addressing the same content area to talk about within that content area workforce? What is the information you're tracking? What are you looking at? Understanding, each, I'll say initiative, for lack of a better word, each initiative that folks are doing, and are there any commonalities, right? Like, is there a possibility that where entities are investing in workforce that we can talk about, well, at the state, sorry, well, there we go. At the state level, as we approach workforce, these are the aspects that we're looking at. And then at the county level, as you approach workforce, these are the ways you're measuring that, or these are your counts or whatnot. So just putting that out there as something that is something we would have to work on and build, right? But that may be an interesting way to talk about how we're using the funds to target an area at like the state level and then then the county level. So just throwing that idea out there, right? And then we can have some shared measures and have some common language and how we talk about the use of the dollars in that content area. Just a thought, I'm thinking aloud. Anna, you have your hand up.
Thank you. I was just going to share, we do how our basically RFP process works. We don't call it that. We developed a grant, gave it a title. It's a 1-year award, and so a 1-year implementation period. So people or awardees submit a mid-year report and then a final report, and then we also request that they do a presentation to our the relevant subcommittee of our community services board. The amount of funding that we're getting is over time a substantial amount, but it only comes in so fast. So we are doing shorter term projects because, I mean, I can't guarantee that we would have the funding to sustain a longer term project. So we're doing more, I'm encouraging kind of like experimentation type of projects that are more short term and measurable versus the ability to track long term.
Okay. Sarah?
Thank you. I think I was just going to share and say maybe we're one of the ones that are holding on to some of our dollars a little bit more, partly because I think when they first came out, we were trying to get them out, and then we took a slight pause for a variety of reasons, and now we're focused on revamping the committee that reviews any proposals we receive and ensuring that both AG monies and the LGU monies go through really essentially the same process, because we really want to kind of streamline it. But we also are trying to coordinate the projects that we accept or the proposals we accept around the local service plan. So the hope is, I had hoped that we would have a housing proposal out by now, but we're still working on our policy and committee. But our goal is really to increase sober housing in our community. So that's one area where we are trying to hold some dollars. And then from a reporting standpoint, I would say data is always hard to ascertain in Schoharie County. We don't necessarily have a lot of reporting mechanisms, but we do and have had anyone who has received opioid dollars is reporting either through the Community Services Board or providing a regular report. Well, relatively regular. Sometimes there has to be a little chasing.
So yeah, but isn't that the way? That's part of the fun. So for Sarah and all, as you're collecting this information and you're getting these reports, are you making any of them available on your public webpage? So you out presentations at committee meetings. Question that Lucia thoughtfully asked was, are any of those meetings public? So do you have any public meetings where you're sharing this information? And also, are you posting any of these reports or any of these details on your webpage? I see some nodding.
Yeah, for us personally, the goal would be in the future, we will be posting more of that information on the website. But again, that would be a role that falls specifically to me, and I don't have enough time to post on our website yet. So forthcoming, I would say, where, and then we also want to do some focus groups to see what are some of the community-based ideas.
Tammy, I see your hand up.
my buttons are kind of doing their own thing here, I think. But just to say, we did have so when we originally went down this road, we convened a steering committee that served a couple of functions for us. One was to help identify what our priorities were in Orange County for spending the settlement dollars. We just recently did a follow-up to that, just to be as transparent as possible, to say, if you haven't seen what's posted, if you haven't been a part of the discussion, please know that these are still our 3 priorities, and this is the most recent data, and this is what we funded. And we did it maybe a month ago. I don't even think it's been a month, maybe 3 weeks ago. We just had that meeting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Lucia is very good at coming up with interesting questions, and so she's prompting me here. So any folks, I heard someone mention that they hired an internal evaluator, an internal data person. So have very many of you utilized the funding to fill that position, to fill a position like that? I see a couple of nodding heads. And actually, I'm just thinking of like the survey that I want to write and send out to you to like collect all this information from you all to help paint a picture as to what it looks like at the county level. And then, you know, again, thank you, Lucia, always planning ideas. You know, the notion of working with a college or university in your area and hiring them as an evaluator and utilizing a local resource to support you in your evaluation is always an interesting thought. And I see Amy did say that Erie County hired an external evaluator for looking at the use of their dollars. Other comments, other thoughts? So in terms of the regional abatement reporting, one thing that, and actually even in terms of the way OASAS is talking about reporting, so we had been talking in terms of the priority areas identified by the board, typically 10 priority areas. And while initially that was a good reference or a reference that resonated and worked. Of course, as the buckets change over time, it becomes more challenging to have consistency across years and in how you're talking about the use of the dollars. And so know that likely we will be pivoting with the regional abatement reporting as we have with our OASAS reporting to think more in terms of content areas or even our continuum, you know, harm reduction, prevention, treatment, recovery. So with that in mind, do you feel like there's like a small handful of like content areas where you're focusing your work and you could say, this is where we're focusing the use of dollars to report out on? And I'm wondering to what extent across all entities we have commonalities in terms of workforce or prevention or harm reduction service delivery. If that's something that, you know, if we were to roll up into larger content areas, would you feel like that would be sufficient, or would that lose some of the granularity and the detail in the work that you're doing? Melissa, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm sitting here kind of contemplating everything that you're saying. There's a couple different pockets that we look at, because if you look at I got to get the right terminology out. I'm sorry, the AG dollars. We kind of split it here in Sullivan County where the AG dollars are kind of covering a lot of the larger projects where the OASAS monies are more for the grassroots treatment type of providers. But again, the larger scale things is definitely we're looking at housing, how to improve the workforce, law enforcement, you know, different need areas like that where you're looking at the more granular things. We're looking at the data component. We're looking at some of our local providers who have hired peers to enhance some of the services that they're doing. We've looked at our prevention dollars, really, because we have limited to no services for youth in Sullivan County. So we're really trying to think outside the box and get certain initiatives started. Some of them hopefully will be self-sustainable and ongoing funding moving forward. Other ones we would be continuing to look for ongoing funding so we don't lose any of those services, because we know that we can't count on this forever. But we're really kind of taking a look at the two varying pockets and trying to be more grassroots with the OASAS funds and more broad with the AG monies. So I don't know if that helps, but.
That's really interesting. Yeah, so I guess so how would any of you like approach this? So if you were in my shoes and you were asking this group of 70 folks to talk about your reporting and what it looks like, how do you all feel about, like, what would be our next steps in terms of trying to identify some consistency across reporting, to the extent, right? And this is to inform how we revise our regional abatement reporting. And so, two, as in all things, there's so many ways you can approach it. We could look at the amount of money spent in X, Y, or Z bucket. We could look at the type of services delivered. I mean, there's so many ways we could kind of slice it and dice it. Like, I'm wondering what makes the most sense to you all as you talk about this and you think about how you're planning to use the dollars. Andrew Heck is on, I noted, so he might cringe when I say this, but a narrative report every year for you all to talk about everything you did with the dollars in that given year. And I'm teasing Andrew because we know, and Catherine's on as well. She's our qualitative researcher, right? Narrative is amazing and fantastic, and there's so much detail and nuance you can get from it. This is where the stories are, right? But to try to digest it all and then like consume it and then be able to present it in a consolidated way across multiple entities is a ton of work. And so I'm not trying to create work for folks, but is there a narrative component to the reporting? Is it about numbers? I said narrative. I saw a couple of heads nod. Is it about, the numbers? Is it the narrative? How do we tell this story of how we're using these dollars? Anna, your hand's up.
I was wondering if there are any plans or intentions to use the results of the various audits to inform what the reporting requirements could be. I know that several counties have been audited, but not all of us have. And so my understanding is that in the audit, there are some questions and expectations around reporting that might be an opportunity for consistency. I mean, I would love, at this point, really the reporting is at all of our discretion. But what I've learned about the audits is that maybe there are some assumptions as to what we should be collecting and how frequently and how often. And so can we wait and see what the results of the audit are and use that to make an informed decision? Or can we use the language about reporting in the audits?
So when you're referring to the audit, Anna, are you talking about individual audits of each, like the OASAS audit of you as downstream entities that receive the dollars and the OASAS audit of you? Or are you talking about an OSC audit of the OSF more broadly, or your local audits that you're doing?
I have not received a request, knock on wood, the request for an opioid settlement dollar-related audit, but I know other counties have. I don't know the details about where those audits originated from, but...
Is that what you're referring to, though?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. So, that's interesting. And part of the reason why I find your point so very interesting is because we are beginning our work with OSC to audit the opioid settlement fund. And I completely agree with what you're saying and understand in that initial conversation, based on the questions that we were being asked, I'm like, oh, this information, that we have, right? And so great thought. Like from an audit perspective, what is it? How do we talk about these dollars? What is it we're gonna need to say, and that we should craft it around that. I did know that Greg Meyer is on, as well as Danielle from Council's office, and happy that they're hearing that, right? In that, you know, they oversee audit and are very much at the table as we think about what should our reporting look like and how can we craft this. And is that a possibility? What exactly do we look at when we audit? And then, you know, my only concern about waiting too long, that there are so many of you, there's a lot to audit. And so there is a schedule that, you know, OASAS has in terms of completing those. But I definitely want to take that back and have a conversation with Greg and Danielle about that idea and what would that look like. Other comments or thoughts that you guys have?
So this is Trevor from Westchester. I was thinking in the context of keeping buckets, but folks have flexibility to talk about what fits in the different buckets and have some description in terms of the narrative piece, not overbearing, but some basic content pieces and numbers that give you some sense of what was targeted and what was and where we got with it. But I really like Anna's idea. The only challenge for me is that I have no idea what that audit instrument looks like. So I really can't put the two pieces together to say whether it's a good idea or not, because I have no sense of, and we have heard about other countries being audited, but we have no, for example, when you're working with OASAS generally, we know what the audit looks like already, right? We have a sense of what it's asking, the kinds of information it's looking for. With this audit process, we have no idea exactly what that looks like. So, so it's tough for me to say whether or not it might be a good idea or not.
And to Trevor's point, like what I've done is reach out to my counterparts who I know have been audited to see if I can get some information about what the audit included to maybe guide my reporting expectations, because really we're going blind at this point.
Okay, so that's an interesting point. So let me ask this: how, if you had your druthers, would you rather OASAS say, here, this is how you have to talk about it and report out on it, and this is the information you need to give us on each of the things you're doing? Or would you say, I'd rather just write a narrative report to you every year and say, this is how I'm doing it. This is what I'm spending money on. I'm just making it up here, right? I'm trying to get a response from you guys just to hear, you know, understand how you're thinking or what your preference is, right? How you guys are looking at it.
I just said, if you want some level of consistency, there must be some parameters, right? So. Right. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be totally prescriptive, but it would be nice to have some guardrails, some parameters within which you do.
To Anna's point, and knowing what that audit tool looks like would be very helpful, because of the fact that we would be prepared and ready and know what information we need to have at the ready for the reviewers. And being able to take that audit tool in terms of what the state agency is looking for, then we would be able to then frame that in a narrative report, certainly including some of the data measures that we have collected information on. You know, I think it all kind of blends together in terms of providing you with the reporting that you really need to meet your you know, your requirements. So I think this is a really good conversation, because certainly there are those LGUs that have been audited by OASAS around the settlement funds. And then there's the rest of us who are kind of in the dark and don't really know what that audit looks like. So all together, I think it ties into a final report that you would be able to really take and use for your reporting.
So are folks discerning between like the audit and being responsive to like audit requirements or what's asked in an audit versus evaluation and like impact on the community and being able to like report out to the public what you have done with those dollars. Because I see them as being a different, not entirely, but different. And so, and two, like the direction the conversation has gone, I hear concern about audit. And I'm wondering, are you guys also feeling concerned or feeling pressure or need in terms of publicly reporting on how you're using the dollars and the impact it's having?
I think that's all a part of the conversation, right, Connie? I mean,
Okay.
we know that we have to have public facing data on our websites that really tracks the amount that we've awarded, what we've, you know, spent or paid out rather. We're looking for ways to really kind of expand the opioid settlement page for our websites. I think being able to sit down as a group and really agree on what it is that we need to be doing, particularly consistently across counties, would be very beneficial to us.
Interesting. That's in, like, I see us all like gathering for like a half a day to talk about this stuff and like, yeah.
There's so much to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So like show of hands, who would participate? Who would chip in on that? Who would show up to have that conversation? I'm looking for the virtual hands too. Oh, I see. All right. I think that the idea of like having some consistency across, I mean, Trevor, your point is well taken, and I think absolutely one of the challenges, right? Like, how are we able to talk about this, you know, across all of so many counties, right? The use of these dollars. Okay, so we still have hands up. It's 11:59, but I'm willing to keep going as long as people are putting their hands up and participating. So Tammy and Melissa both have their hands up. Is that because, no, not, okay. Melissa, go ahead, not Tammy.
That was to your vote on who would be willing to help out, sorry.
Okay, so any last comments or thoughts from, I know folks are jumping. We're at time. So much to talk about here. I think this is just the start. I'm excited that folks are interested in coming back together to work through this. Know that this could be kind of like this is a multi-week endeavor here, multi-month endeavor. Something we're going to solve in 1 or 2 meetings. So I'm going to take back everything that we talked about this morning. If you have thoughts or comments after today's meeting, please don't hesitate to email me or give me a call to share what you're thinking. It's a group effort. We're all in this together, and I'd like together for us to figure out and inform what that reporting modification will look like going forward. So we do have time, that's the great thing, and plenty of it, right? We've got years. Not that we want to wait years to work out the reporting, but we're going to need it for years, that's for sure. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate you. I'll be in touch, and see you next one.
Thank you, Connie.